Minecraft claims to be a game with a heavy focus on exploration, as evident by the procedural generation, wealth of biomes, and various structures included in the game. But before you boot up your vanilla game, gather up your gear, prepare yourself for a great journey. Look to the sky and see a bunch of people with wings making a scenic trek through the wilderness completely redundant. Here's Chapter 3, Exploration. For my server, I want exploration to be very important, which means like all mechanics in a video game, I need to make sure it's fun. Exploration is a natural desire in the human brain though, so this shouldn't be too hard. The only thing I need to do is make it much more engaging. In its current state, exploration is something you barely think about. You walk in a straight line, hope you find something kinda cool, and head back once your inventory is full. To accomplish this, I'll make this so-called adventure more difficult, but not frustrating. The first few mods I'm adding are Tough as Nails and Serene Seasons. The temperature of any biome is something you're going to have to consider before setting out on any journey. Hot biomes will be hot, cold biomes will be cold, duh. So in order to pass these treacherous landscapes, you'll have to think about your supplies, the season, and even the direction to travel. If you've seen my previous videos, top right corner if you haven't, you'll know I'm using Terraforge to shake up the world generation. I think it looks actually awesome, and it gives me this handy dandy world preview I teased in the beginning. Now I can make the temperature, moisture, and size of the world just the way I want it in one huge continent, with the north and south poles being cold, and an equator of hot biomes running through the middle, with more temperate ones in between. So next time you try to explore, before you dare head north, perhaps you realize you need to pack extra water in order to cross the blazing desert. Or maybe you take a longer trek around it so that it dissolves into the more mild-tempered savanna. Say perhaps you're in a time constraint though, so you decide to wait and face the perils of night when it's colder, but risk running into some monsters. This way, there are tons of things to consider when it comes to your journeys throughout the lands, and to avoid it getting stale, that's where Serene Seasons comes in, which will change every week, or two. Not super sure yet, but it'll require further playtesting. With all these things in place, I now have something pretty neat to consider every Minecraft day, especially when it comes to when you might decide to launch an attack on an enemy faction, but that's for the politics video. However, while making the exploration more engaging, we must consider the number one item that ruins the value of exploration, the elytra. It's just not worth exploring when you have such a potent get-out-of-jail-free card, which means I must remove the functionality of rockets with elytras, or else all this work I put into making exploration interesting goes down the drain. If you're worried the elytra becomes useless after this though, I assure you it will not be. The mod I'm using to fix this is Aileron, which is now updated to 1.20.1, the version the pack is on. The mod's whole idea revolves around the value of infrastructure, so it takes away the rocket functionality, but adds a campfire smokestack functionality. You might not be able to boost your way with rockets now, but instead get lifted from the campfire smoke. So instead of removing elytras altogether, you can instead lighten your roads with campfires as a way to boost the speed of your infrastructure. Especially since exploration takes so much forethought and planning now, I can definitely see how it would get a little annoying when just trying to do a routine journey. Maybe for a trade route between towns, or a journey for a resource deposit, it could be a little frustrating to manage for something so frequent. This is supposed to be players' primary encouragement to build infrastructure, trains, and paths between hotspot locations, making the world feel so much more alive and interesting, especially when these roads might have some interesting things that separate their design from other ones. Like, maybe you built them to make a trek through the desert easier, but in order to keep your passengers safe, you built it in a tunnel lined with ice to keep the travelers nice and cold. Perhaps when on trading routes, you have large amounts of resource being transferred, so you build a train instead of a simple minecart to haul these mass amounts of goods and deposit them easily. Now with the environment being deadly on its own, and infrastructure towns and cities being small little safe havens in an unforgiving world, I have the perilous and risky vibe I've always wanted exploration to be. If you've seen my previous videos, you already know how I plan on making the structures in this world built by myself on a preset smaller map. So, mark my words when I say some of these will not be easy to get to. Whether it's a formidable fortress in a freezing climate, or a bombastic bastion in a blazing desert, no matter how hard you prepare to try and make it past these structures, you'll be so beaten and bruised by the time you get there, you won't survive what's inside. Worry not, however, for the next 2 mods we're going to add are going to make getting to these locations actually possible. Introducing Valkyrian Skies and Clockwork. These mods add a whole physics system and blocks to manipulate it. That's right, if you want to get to these perilous places, you have to put your minds together and design airships, submarines, and more. Obviously, these are for the ultra endgame dungeons, where I'm trying my hardest to kill you, and many of the other dungeons are simple tests of certain skills, which perhaps will be a little easier to get to. Now that the basic overworld is going to be so dangerous to explore, the same could be said about the oceans as well, as with the Terraforged mod, I can make the oceans genuinely insane, so this area should finally be a blast. Technically, the ocean is supposed to be over 3,000 blocks deep, but I suppose 300 will have to do instead. Now, a trip to the bottom isn't as simple anymore, and you'll have to design submarines in order to have a safe trek to the bottom, or else you might find something down there that can take your precious water breathing away. After adding the Amplified Nether mod, the Nether will still be the ultra-hot, vicious landscape it's supposed to be, but now the world height is increased to the full 256 blocks, making room for some awesome mountain-like generation. I'm also going to make sure you can still survive in there by clever usage of the plants and foliage around you, so it's not an ultimate death trap and is still interesting, but you'll certainly still die should you come unprepared. And after adding the Nullscape mod, it puts all the end islands at different heights in the world, making it way more interesting to try and traverse, as it's not so simple anymore. And with every area of the game looking fantastic and super interesting, but not without their own perils, exploration is an extremely important and engaging mechanic at last, without that silly Elytra cop-out. If this sounds like the Minecraft you want, join the Discord server below, since I can't guarantee it'll stay open forever. Be sure to subscribe as well for future updates.